Welcome back to Behavioral Finance and FinTech. I'm Andy Kim, your Dr. Finance. And today I'm going to spend some time doing the valuation guidelines for you guys. I understand that many of you must have learned about this valuation techniques during your financial management course or your investment class or intermediate corporate finance class. But there may be some other of you who did not experience this valuation things before. So, and then specifically for KakaoBank's purpose, you cannot use the DCF, but it's much better to use relative valuation. And I don't know how much you've learned about relative valuation. So just to get you on the same page, I'm going to go through the relative valuation together a little bit. Okay. And then you may wonder what the heck I have right now over here. This is gaming microphone headset. And then microphone over here. Why don't I use this one, Blue Yeti, which is fantastic? Yes, that's great, but it's too heavy. Right now, this is much more convenient for me. Why do I demonstrate it to you? Because for your interview purpose, the job market purpose, this kind of gaming microphone is much better, I think, than your typical headset that does not have microphone. I find a lot of you have a microphone in your this string, right? String microphone over there. Then I don't really recommend that kind of microphone, which is on your string over here. Why don't I recommend it? Well, it makes your posture very difficult. Like you have to pull it over here and say when you're doing interview with your companies, right? But this kind of microphone is much easier. You don't have to worry about this, quality of the sound. And then whenever you speak, using this kind of microphone, you often forget about pulling this thing up. Okay, so that what happens? The listener cannot hear you. The interviewer will not be able to hear you. What the heck are you talking about? They will say, but they cannot say it. Instead, they will reject you. So their answer is clear. They will reject you if they cannot understand what the heck you're talking about. So you want to make sure your microphone is catching your sound or your mouth clearly, which is this is much better. And then how much do you have to spend your money on this one? Well, 5만 원, like 50 US dollars worth, right? Or 40 US dollars worth, that's good enough, right? I don't ask you to spend millions of dollars about this one. Just a couple of, investment. So go ahead and do it. Yeah, Blue Yeti is great. Yeah, but for me right now, it's like too heavy to do the lecture. I wanted to, free up my hands and then explain somewhere behind. So that's why. Anyway, so valuation, let's go. Yeah. Stock market recommendation. Yeah, stock recommendation is what you have to do in this term project, right? For that purpose, you need to do valuations. Yes, for KakaoBank. That's good. Before we move on, what are those 3 methods in valuing any company? 3 different methods you have. 1 is DCF, 2 is relative valuation, 3 is option pricing. What? DCF is discounted cash flow method that time value of money extended, right? That kind of stuff. Discounting all those expected cash flows with the relevant cost of capital. That's it. Relative valuation, that's PE or PB or PS or EV to EBITDA or all kinds of multiples are waiting for you. PE, what is that? You are more familiar with PER, PER, Korean guys, right? Every time you guys have to put R behind, like PER, PBR, I don't know, I don't understand why the hell they want this R behind, right? It's in any case, it's going to be the ratio, but it's their habit. But once you get out of Korea, they use PE, PB, and then all those things, right? I'm going to discuss that a little later. And then that's what we have to work on over here. The trouble is this one. The trouble is this, that you have to work on, right? And you have to forget about this one. Not to forget about, but don't use this one. Even though you must have spent a lot of time learning about this DCF, right? Why is the case? You may ask this question, but wait for that. Option pricing, well, what is that? Well, when you are valuing a distressed companies or patents and right to make sequel movies like Squid Game number 2 or Squid Game 3 kind of sequel movie. There's a right to produce the sequel movie depending on the success of the original movie, right? So that's a conditional upon the success of the original asset. So that's a derivative. Option pricing is being used. And then distressed companies, and then why do we use option pricing? Because you can interpret the equities as an option upon, call option upon the asset of your company. Sounds exciting, right? That's sexy to use option pricing to value any company. But that does not mean that I encourage you to use option pricing when you're valuing KakaoBank, because too complicated, overly complicated, I hate that. I told you, don't overcomplicate the situation. Simpler, the better. Just use the simpler one. 정권지르기, like a one punch, kill everything, get Nobel Prize. I told you before, right? It is the one who is not good at their fundamental technique, fundamental understanding. It is the one that are weak in understanding that try to use all kinds of sexy technique. Forget about the sexy technique. Option pricing, forget it. Okay? I'm just listing up over here as a demonstration 3 different methods in valuation. And then I'm narrowing down to relative valuation. Okay, so it narrows down to DCF and relative valuation, and I'm going to narrow it further down to relative valuation. But before we move on further, we have to understand why I'm saying reject these 2, DCF and option valuations, right? First thing, rejected. This is too complicated, unnecessary. Is not a situation. The option pricing is suitable for distressed companies that does not seem to have any future. 개잡주, 동전주, you go ahead and do this. But KakaoBank is not 개잡주, not a penny stock, and then it's not a right to extract any natural resources. No way. So that's why you don't use option pricing technique over there. DCF, discounted cash flow methods versus relative valuation. Why do we have to choose this one as opposed to that one? First of all, you have to think about the philosophical difference in using these 2, DCF versus relative valuation. If you are a long-term investor, like a 10 years horizon, right? The funny thing is, the undergraduate students or MBA students together, right? Whenever they write the valuation reports, they always claim that my perspective is like I'm going to be a Warren Buffett and I'm going to invest, like my investment horizon is 10 years, long-term investors. As if long-term investors are something utmost good, an angel and something great. And then these short-term investors are something inferior and something unethical and something bad. Get up. Wake up. It's not that. Okay? But anyway, for long-term investors, DCF is more helpful. Okay, with the philosophical difference, in DCF, I told you before, in efficient market hypothesis, right? Efficient market hypothesis. It gets down to how much do you believe in the market efficiency, right? Philosophy. What the hell is that? It's about EMH, right? How much do you believe in EMH? This guy, they don't believe in EMH. At least in the short run, they don't believe in the semi-strong form EMH. That's why Warren Buffett always say, like, the Coca-Cola or whatever company is undervalued. Well, how could it be undervalued given that the market is efficient? They don't believe in market efficiency. At least the semi-strong form efficiency. No way. No Jose. That's why they identify undervalued stocks and then wait for a long time, and then it's going to get to the efficient level in the long run. So they believe in the EMH in the long run, okay? Semi-strong form in the long run, not in the short run, okay? That's that. And relative valuation, we are believing in EMH, but in a careful way, right? On average, right? On average, at every moment, market is efficient at every moment, okay? On average. But each different companies may be priced, inefficiently. Cross-section of the stocks, thousands of different stocks, right? On average there, let's assume that they are, let's assume that they are correctly priced, efficiently priced. The average is efficient, okay? average는 efficient 탓이다. But the deviation is there. Some stocks are overvalued, some stocks are undervalued. Let's take long short position, and then it will converge to average. That's the difference, right? Against this DCF approach. Philosophical difference is there. But the reason I tell you to focus on relative valuation is not because of philosophical difference, but because of realistic limitation. Especially for DCF. Why did I say in each? But for DCF valuation, there is a limitation for you. Why? What the heck? Let's see what happens over here. Okay, DCF valuation, what is that about? Well, that's, value today times 0 is nothing but the summation, the sigma summation of all those expected cash flow in the future. Why is it future? This time of the value that I estimate as of today, that's day zero. Okay, that's present. But the expected future cash flow, the time point of the cash flow happening is something in the future. T is equal to 1, something greater than 1. So that could be next minute, next day, next month, next year. So in the future, expected cash flow. What kind of cash flow would that be? It depends. But anyway, any cash flow that you expected and then discounted at a relevant cost of capital, right? R. And then to the power of T. Compounding is going on, right? So discounted until, the expected future cash flow that happens until infinite horizon. 영속기업, kind of like long-lived companies, right? And then forever. Anyway, so publicly traded firms potentially has an infinite life. That's why, and the value is therefore present value of all the cash flows forever. Since we cannot estimate cash flows forever, we estimate cash flows for growth period, and then we assume some growth scenarios, right? Some exponential growth in a younger stage, and then it will taper off. What do you mean by taper off? It's slow down, right? And then at the end, it will have a slow growth rate, stable stage growth rate, right? Stable state. At some point. What point? We don't know. Let's just assume it to be some time called big T. So until time big T, we have expected cash flow going on. And then there's a terminal value that we're going to estimate at the time big T. That's the same time as this one. But the terminal value, okay, that's the expected future cash flow starting from T plus 1, right? Big T plus 1 up until infinite horizon, so that you are summarizing it as terminal value big T, and then discounted at relevant cost of capital together with it, but big T time horizon. Okay, that's the value of today, right? We have to make a scenario or kind of have an idea, the official kind of, we have to imagine ourselves when our company will stop growing at a high speed. Okay, that's the thing right now of DCF. But you may say, yeah, mathematically speaking, that's so sexy. And it's like cool, right? Representing everything with mathematics. Isn't it great? I told you, complicated is not good, right? Mathematically speaking, you know what to input, each and every one of them, right? But you may feel uncomfortable when you are bringing this kind of methodology to KakaoBank. You may feel uncomfortable. Why do you feel uneasy? Okay, there are many reasons, right, for that uncomfortableness. So for old companies with abundant historical data, DCF is for you. That's great. For example, Samsung Electronics, right? 40 plus years of history available. The data is available for you. Of course, Samsung goes back to 1960 or something like that. The data is not available, unfortunately. But from 1980 going on to today, we have those data. Some of you may say, oh, you know what? We have historical data of 3 years, like 1, 2, 3 data points. 1, 2, 3. And can't we just do can't we just extrapolate based on this 3 years observation? 3 years observation. Good luck, right? You look at this history, right? What happens fluctuating over time? It's like taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. You need you need to have a cycle going on. I mean, you realize that there is a cycle going on, and then 3 years is not good enough. Okay. What's the length of this frequency? What's the length of the period, right? We don't know. Okay, it depends on the industry, right? Cycle. There's a cycle. Is it a regular one or random one? We don't know. For Samsung Electronics, it happened like 7 years horizon, 6 year horizon, shorter horizon, longer horizon. You see it, right? But the thing is, there is a fluctuation. You just don't know the frequency yet. It's a random one. But at least if you have a longer horizon history, you have a good understanding of what's going to happen in the future as well. It's not going to be deviating too much from the past. So 반도체 super cycle, the semiconductor super cycle will happen. Like you have some good sense of it. But KakaoBank, when it's going to peak out, we don't know. When it's going to trough out, we don't know. And what you see over here, this is a time series graph of net capital expenditure as a percentage of total assets, and then working capital as a percentage of total assets. What the heck is net capital expenditure? CapEx is about investment amount, and then the investment is something going out, how much you spend to build your factories. And then not only negative capex is there, right? Negative capex or usual capex is a spending money is there. It's positive amount spent over here, what you spend, right? But negative capex could be there because sometimes you sell off your existing assets and get some cash based on that. So net capex is like depreciation as well, right? Depreciation is also there, which is a negative amount for capital expenditure. And so that's why you see this fluctuation is like in the lower bound over here, lower level over here. And then working capital, that's what? That's inventory essentially, right? Accounts receivable plus inventory minus accounts payable. Those three items are there, right? And inventory, right, is as a percentage of total assets are shown over here. Shouldn't it be a percentage of total sales? Yeah, you're right. But just as a standard way of doing it to compare with these guys, right? Anyway, so Samsung Electronics, POSCO, the same thing. You have long history and data is available there, and then you can pretty much guess what's going to be the next level of net capex for this company in the future. It's not going to be like shooting up to 100% or like a negative 100% or something. It's going to be somewhere around here, okay? On average, it's going to be here, right? You're eyeballing, you can have some good idea about it. Existing old-aged companies, right? That's where the DCF is good for you. Because the DCF items, capex and working capital is clearly one of the input items that you have to throw in to calculate those expected cash flows, right? The numerator. KTNG, another long history companies like 담배인삼공사 is like a smoke, right? It's Korea Tobacco and Ginseng Company. They do tobacco business, which ruins your health. And once you ruin your health enough, what do? Eat ginseng and then revive yourself so that you can smoke again. Back and forth. 병 주고 약 주고. It's like anyway. So one of long history net capex is like they have so much of a depreciation because their factories are already there. It's depreciation. You don't need too much of a new investment. Yeah, people are going to smoke whatever. You don't have to worry about investment. That's why it's like this silent. And then working capital, you want to manage your inventory level at 60% level or something. Historically, it has been that way. And then you can see that they're not going to reduce their working capital down to zero or shoot up their working capital to like 200% level or something. It's going to be somewhere over here. You can see that trend, and then it's like going up, or it's going to be reasonable there, right? So DCF, it's convenient for you if your company is like this kind of well-established companies. But KakaoBank is a different story. But you're a young company, right? For a young company with short history, right? It's going to be like this. Imagine you are valuing a young US company that did the IPO in 1997 or sometime, right? That time. Short history is historical data. Only short time period is available. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the ROE, what the hell is that? That is net income divided by book value of equity, right? Starting point book value of equity is in the denominator, and then the numerator is net income. What is the idea? It's a profitability or the return on investment for the equity holders, right? Equity holders stuck in their investment amount in the form of what? Equity, right? Total equity is a denominator. Out of that, how much profit did you generate for the equity holders? That's net income, right? Why don't you think about these debt holders? You already paid the interest expenses, so you don't have to worry about that. It's all about the equity side of the investment side story. What's the return for the equity holders? Well, for this company, you see this one. I'm not kidding. This one, 600%. Minus. 6 times bigger than what you stuck in as an equity investment. The next year, holy cow, 800 negative. 8 times loss-making company. What the hell is that? And still they, right, did the IPO in this time period. What the hell kind of company should it be so that they will be able to do the IPO with this kind of miserable performance? Huge loss, 800% of loss, right? And ROE, and you still were able to do the IPO. Guess what company it must have been? This year, you are familiar with the Coupang, so it's not a surprise to you. But before this, Coupang, Korean students had a hard time understanding what the heck is going on over there, right? It was one of those .com companies, right? And then if you look at their sales, right? It was exponentially growing until 1999. Whoa. And that's why the more you sell, the more loss you realize, right? Seems like you're in trouble, too much of a trouble. But the interesting thing is market cap was also growing almost exponentially. Some of you may say like, yeah, based on these 1, 2, 3 points, right? Data points, it seems like it's tapering off a little bit. So should we say it's going to be tapering off like this, right? Should we extrapolate like this? And I say, wait, don't determine that easily, right? Tapering off easily. What company was that? The company was Amazon. Man. ROE, I told you, 600, 800% negative, and then bouncing back and forth like this. What happened to the Amazon.com later on in their ROE? Boom, 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 like this. What? Standing at this point, right? Nowadays, right? If you look back, everything seems easy. Yeah, Amazon, didn't you know that Amazon will be like performing this good? Exposed after the fact, right? Everything seems easy, but ex ante, before the fact, standing at this point, would you have been able to project this ROE going into the future, like in this manner? KakaoBank, we don't know where the heck this company stands. Similar things, standing at this point, would you be able to project this kind of ROE pattern in the future? And that, how many years? 20 years plus, right? I'm not talking about 1 year, 2 year projection, right? 20 years down the road. Would you be able to do that? You need a lot of imagination. You need to be a lot more imaginative than, standard way of, guessing. So ROE projections, right? You needed to have this kind of half-life approaches, right? Set your target ROE level somehow, and the difference between the set level and then current ROE level, the difference, half of the differences go away in a year or two. And then standing at that point, the half of the differences go away in a given time amount, right? 반감기가 언제냐? It's like a half-life. When is that, right? You need to set up that kind of scenarios to do the DCF valuation. You need a lot of experience of doing evaluation in your own way. Trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. Jampap tells you only your experience guides you through this one. You're not experienced. Would I be asking you to do this one? No way. No Jose. No. And then I told you over here the market cap seems like tapering off. Would it taper off? And then the sales, on the other hand, it's not that much. Where should we go? And then if you look at the sales growth of Amazon.com, what I showed you was until 1999 and 2000. And sales growth, wasn't it having enough of exponential growth until then? And you are wrong, totally wrong. Holy cow. Another exponential growth. Holy cow. Standing at this point, would you say, wouldn't it be tapering off soon? We don't know. We don't know. And then, if you thought that the Amazon will be, tapering off soon, here is Walmart. Their growth was also exponential. And then they kept on growing fast for prolonged period of time instead of tapering off quickly. So it really takes your imagination. Okay? Can I be creative? Can I be imaginative in finance? Yes. 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 Creativity is the only difference between finance versus accounting. Sorry to accounting professors. Sorry to CPA guys. If you are so proud of being CPA, wake up, man. You're not imaginative, right? Accounting guys, they are tied up with the past numbers. They're, anchored too much on the past numbers. They don't have a room for imagination. So that's why they're more like a black and white person. I always say, make fun of them. Finance guys, it's more about Nefisha. Or Nefisha, what is Nefisha? It's like you need a lot of imagination. You should be able to picture, big picture, right? The world of, what's going to happen. It depends on your imagination. Open up your brain. That's something you are allowed to do in valuation. Okay? Free to go. That's why marketing person are excellent finance guys, right? This is where the marketing person aces. Okay? So, for accounting persons, CPA guys, they usually suck in my class, by the way. Warning, warning, warning. Number 2 reason why CPA guys suck in my class is because they already have that CPA license so that they get laid. They're like complacent. Yeah, I already got a, CPA, so I don't have to worry about my job. So why do I have to do my best in whatever Andy says? I'm going to forget about what he says. Just give me grade. Yeah, I'm not going to give you A+ if you're working like this, right? But CPA guys, they just forget about what they should do. And they are not trying their best, historically in my class. It has been that way, okay? Wasn't the CPA guy supposed to, superior to anything else? No, come on. They don't do it, okay? Number 1 reason, they are tied up with the past number too much. Open up your imagination. This is where your creativity pays off in your valuation work. So, I am, the marketing guys, if you are a marketing person or a strategy person, this is the place you will ace, right? And then bankers, those iBankers, right? I told you, the consultants, the marketing guys, they hire, these finance guys to the extent that you are imaginative enough and open-minded enough, right? And talking about the imagination part, right? Do you have the big picture of the future? Okay? A lot of CPA guys have a tendency to ignore marketing imagination. saying that, oh, that's bullshitting, like it's not numbers, like not quantitative. And then this accounting, we have this number, which is superior. But the thing is, those numbers that you hold on to is micro, small level. You may say that, oh, you have to be firm in your small detail, in solid in your small detail, so that only then you will deserve to have better, larger, flexibility to work with bigger monies only with your solid understanding of small numbers over their details. You have to be strong at details. But the thing is, don't ignore the big picture. Okay? What's the future that you have in your mind? That's too big. Don't we have to narrow it down? But the big picture future, that's what the leaders of the whole world is having in their mind. And you have to share that vision together. Okay? That's very hard. Of course, as an undergraduate and a small guy like us, or would we be able to even talk with those big guys over there? But some guys are doing that. There are some people who have those imagination in themselves, right? They're able to do that. And that's what we call a leader. Okay? Is it born or is it trained? I don't know. Is it a nature or nurture? We don't know. But at least you need to open up your mind. Open-mindedness matters over there. And then those supposedly bullshitting, is not that much of a bullshitting. And you have to make your imagination just more concrete instead of just completely ignoring them and throwing away. That's the difference between those guys who get there versus not. Okay? So I hope that helps for you. Where will it go? We don't know. And then this part, right? Young startup companies, the valuation is terribly difficult, right? So, what is it? The Aswath Damodaran has a special book about this valuation, the dark side of it, right? Go ahead and read it in yourself, in your pleasure times, right? Reading pleasure. And then my discussion of this will be heavily dependent on this Aswath Damodaran's valuation book. You can watch his videos, much better than my lecture, by the way, right? Of course, he's a guru and the godfather of valuation. And CNBC says that he is the dean of valuation. So I learned so much from his lectures as well. So go ahead and watch it. Relative valuation, I'm going to talk about this part, right? So let's go through. I'm trying to summarize it. Anyway, so given that our company, KakaoBank, is the only short history companies, I suggest you not to use DCF. Some of you may still insist on DCF. I'm going to give you maybe a bonus point of 1 out of 100. 1% bonus points if you try DCF. And then if you are convincing and then successful in convincing me using your DCF approach, okay? Which means not a good payoff for you. ROI bad, okay, is very bad if you try DCF. I strongly suggest you to go for relative valuation. There's a multiple reason that I suggest you to go for relative valuation. And so the next video, I'm going to talk about this relative valuation. The reason that I suggest you, another reason is it's related to quantitative trading called the quantamental approaches, quantamental. The reason that I suggest you not to go for DCF does not mean that you should forget about the fundamentals. Those fundamental variables will also matter a lot in your relative valuation. It's directly related to that quantamental approaches. So I'm going to talk about that in the next video. So wait for that.